Loren didn't let go. His expression remained calm, almost detached. "It's okay, Faith. You'll understand once you've gone through it. You have to let go of your fears. You have to trust me." Faith's heart was pounding in her chest. This wasn't just a conversation anymore. This wasn't just a quirky eccentricity. Loren wasn't asking her about vulnerability. He was controlling it. "I'm leaving now," she said firmly, pushing herself away from the couch. But Loren didn't move. "You can't leave, Faith. You've already agreed to this. You're part of it. You can't back out now." His voice was steady, cold. Faith felt a wave of nausea wash over her. She scrambled to her feet and backed toward the door. Loren stood still, watching her with that same unsettling calm. The door clicked shut behind her, and Faith's legs shook as she stumbled down the hall and out into the night air. She didn't stop walking until she was a few blocks away, her breath ragged and her thoughts in a whirlwind. She had barely been able to process what had happened. What had Loren meant by part of it? What had he intended to do? She didn't know, but she was certain she didn't want to find out. If you're interested in a suspenseful narrative, we can explore that direction, perhaps centering on an unsettling encounter that evokes psychological tension, without crossing into inappropriate or harmful territory. Here's the beginning of such a story that fits within a psychological thriller framework, ensuring that the characters' experiences and the story's tone remain appropriate. Faith had always been a creature of habit. She was the kind of person who found comfort in routine, in the quiet spaces between work, friendships, and fleeting moments of joy. So when she met Loren, something about his unpredictability had intrigued her. He was different, eccentric in a way that made their conversations interesting, but also left her unsettled. He often seemed to watch her closely, his eyes following her movements with an intensity that was impossible to ignore. Loren was charming in a way that felt rehearsed. He could tell a good joke, ask deep questions, and make her feel special. But there was always something off about him, something that lingered in the air when they spent time together. The way his gaze would linger too long on certain things, the way he would ask about her vulnerabilities. Things that normal people didn't inquire about on casual dates. It had been unsettling from the start, but Faith didn't know how to put her finger on why. It started innocently enough. He invited her over for dinner one evening. The offer seemed harmless enough, a casual evening at his apartment. She hesitated, unsure of what to expect, but she agreed. Loren was a mystery, and she found herself drawn to unraveling it. When she arrived at his apartment, the atmosphere was colder than she remembered. The space was minimalistic, clean, almost sterile. Everything was arranged just so. No pictures, no knickknacks, just the bare necessities. It felt like a model apartment, something out of a catalog. Loren greeted her at the door with his usual smile, though tonight it seemed a little too wide, a little too tight around the edges. "Faith, you made it," he said, his voice smooth, almost mechanical. "I'm glad you came." She smiled, though her stomach twisted. "Yeah, thanks for inviting me." The evening went on as it usually did. They talked, ate dinner, and Loren asked questions that seemed innocuous enough at first. But the more they talked, the more Faith realized that Loren wasn't asking just to get to know her. He was asking to study her, to observe her reactions as if she were an experiment. His questions grew more personal, more probing. "What makes you nervous, Faith?" Loren asked, his voice laced with something she couldn't quite identify. Faith shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "I don't know. I guess I'm not a fan of surprises." Loren's eyes lit up, like he'd found something interesting. "Interesting," he murmured. "How do you feel about being touched unexpectedly?" Faith frowned. "What do you mean?" I mean, if someone touches you without warning, how does that make you feel? Loren pressed, leaning in a little closer. The question made Faith uneasy, and she instinctively pulled her legs closer to her body. I'm not sure. I guess it depends on who it is. Loren smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. And what if it was someone you trusted? Would that change how you reacted? Faith was growing more uncomfortable by the second. She tried to steer the conversation back to safer ground, but Loren kept bringing it back to the same subject: touch, vulnerability, how people react when they feel exposed. She thought about leaving, but something in her gut told her it wasn't yet time. She needed answers. There was something in Loren's demeanor, in the way he kept observing her, that made her want to understand him more. Loren, what exactly are you getting at? Faith asked, her voice steady, but her hands betraying her nervousness as they fidgeted with the edge of her sleeve. Loren leaned back in his chair, a knowing smile creeping up his face. I'm just trying to understand the nature of vulnerability, how we react to things we can't control. Like, for instance, his voice trailed off as his eyes drifted to her feet. Faith followed his gaze down to where her shoes had come off earlier. The sudden focus on her feet made her uneasy. She didn't like people staring at her feet, let alone commenting on them. She instinctively tucked her feet beneath her. Loren chuckled softly. You're so guarded, Faith. It's just a simple question. Her heart rate increased. There was something in the way he said it, something that didn't sound innocent. It was like he was pushing her, trying to get a reaction. But she wasn't sure if it was out of curiosity or something darker. Maybe I should go, Faith said, standing up abruptly. She felt the sudden urge to leave, to escape whatever strange energy Loren was cultivating. But Loren was already standing, moving toward her with a slow, deliberate step. You don't have to leave, he said, his voice calm but his eyes intense. I just want to see how you react. You're always so controlled. Before Faith could react, Loren's hand reached for her ankle. She froze, her body tensing in shock. His touch was firm but gentle, and before she could pull away, he held her foot still in his grip. No, Faith gasped, jerking her foot away. Her pulse quickened, her body flooding with panic. Let go of me, Loren. Loren's hand dropped, but his eyes remained locked onto hers. I'm just trying to understand you, Faith. I need to see it, the real you, the one behind all the walls you've built. The air between them thickened, and Faith felt like she was suffocating. Loren's obsession with vulnerability was no longer theoretical. It was personal, and it was aimed directly at her. Stop, Faith said, her voice shaking now. This isn't what I signed up for. But Loren didn't seem to hear her. His gaze softened, like he was trying to communicate something through his eyes. You don't understand, do you? You can't hide forever. You have to let go. You have to trust me. Faith backed toward the door, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew something was wrong, and she couldn't stay any longer. I'm leaving, she said firmly, opening the door with trembling hands. Goodbye, Loren. Loren didn't stop her, but his eyes followed her, filled with an emotion she couldn't quite decipher. Disappointment, maybe, or something darker. As she stepped out into the cool night air, her mind raced. She had narrowly escaped whatever game Loren was playing. But even as she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. She was part of something now, something Loren had planned, something that had only just begun.